Indiana University winning its first football national championship. Not basketball. This is football. This is 2026. They are national championships of the college football world after an undefeated regular season, taking down Miami as we just take a quick gander. 21-27, the Hoosiers on top. Weirdly enough, statistically speaking, Miami had the better game on paper. You had the leading passer, the leading rusher, the leading receiver. But Indiana just did what they've done all season. They just won the game. Google it, to quote Signetti. They found a way to do it, and I never thought in my lifetime I'd see a Hoosiers national championship. Even in college, even playing the college football games, I had never thought I would see it. But here we are in less than 2 seasons. We got, if I'm not mistaken, 29-1 in 2 seasons at Signetti now, something like that. So just absolutely unbelievable run by the Hoosiers to take the college football world by storm.
Yeah, it's incredible to see. I mean, I definitely know it's the strongest team to ever come out of the state of Indiana in the college level, for sure. Some might argue the NFL level, but honestly, maybe just this year.
Until the Bears move to Gary, then yeah.
But no, this is incredible. I mean, there's a lot of cool things about Indiana winning. You mentioned the stats wise, and I do want to bring this up because I found this yesterday as I was scrolling through the massive onslaught of statistics that comes after a crazy national championship run. Before I get to it, though, by the way, 16-0, first time that's happened since 1894. So that's crazy. Second, though, this is a post on the CFB Reddit, which, of course, if you follow college football, you probably follow. Welcome to the degeneracy. But anyways, here it goes. Per metrics consensus, the 2025 Indiana Hoosiers are power rated as the 9th best college football team since 1946, ahead of teams like 2019 LSU, 2001 Miami, 2008 Florida, 2004 USC, and 1991 Washington. They are also, and this is the part I joked about the Indiana, they're also the strongest college football team to ever come out of the state of Indiana, which, again, includes all the Notre Dames. Just throwing that out there. So,
I gotta say, statistically, that is hilarious because, like we mentioned, looking at those things here, Indiana's not really elite in any stat. When you look at it, like they didn't have an explosive offense, they weren't elite throwing, they weren't elite rushing, they were a good defense, but they weren't like an all-time defense compared to like those 2001 Hurricanes, for example. But that statistic and the win-loss column is where they're their absolute most elite. And while it may say that, I will disagree. I don't know if they beat all of those teams that you just mentioned, if that we put them head-to-head in my own noggin, despite what the numbers say. But that is incredible company to be a part of nonetheless, especially as we mentioned, you don't exactly have a history of even being competent, let alone good in college football. Like it's not even a history, honestly. If they could rewrite the record book right now, Indiana football would have started in 2024. They're going to ignore everything before
it. Yeah, they'd probably be very happy about that, honestly. They have more national championships than some teams that, if that would have been the case, that have been around for 200 years. But I digress. Here's a couple of stats to back it up, by the way. The all-time scoring differential per game for undefeated champions. Number 1, Florida State in 2013, 39.5 point difference. 2001 Miami and Texas, both at second, 33.8, and the 2005 Texas team right there. And then 2018 Clemson, 31.2 point difference. And then number 5 is 2025 Indiana at 29.9 points per game or point differential for the season. Also finished the season 3rd in scoring offense and 2nd in scoring defense. The last national championship to do that was the 2013 Florida State team, which led the nation as points per games allowed and finished 2nd in points per game. So absolutely kind of an incredible run across the board. This year finished passing efficiency first overall in third down conversions, first overall in turnover margin, first overall in fumbles lost, second overall in total sacks, and that's total sacks, second overall in rushing defense, second overall in scoring defense, second overall in first downs allowed per game, and I could go on and on. This list is literally like 30 stats deep, and it is kind of crazy to think about it when you consider who I just named off team-wise. Joe Burrow and the 2019 LSU Tigers. That feels like that's the best undefeated team I've ever watched in my life.
Especially offensively, at least.
Yeah. 2001 Miami. Okay, honestly, I have complaints about the 2001 Miami team, but I won't tell Miami Hurricanes fans that. But that's a me thing
enough right now.
Yeah. 2008 Florida. Were they
That
perfect?
team's
No.
that team was overrated.
But 2004 USC.
That's a wagon.
That was the USC. That was the USC that put USC on the map for our era of college football. And like when I see that one, I'm like, that's crazy. 1991 Washington. I also like, okay, I think that's different eras of football, so I could definitely see them being ranked higher. But I would say that's also the era before us. That's their college football. Them and that Washington team and that Nebraska team in those years would be the teams that they would consider as the all-time greats. So, yeah, looking at this list of teams that they're ahead of, it's just kind of crazy that ninth best ever champion. Also, kind of surprised that they didn't put Auburn up here as the team that they were in front of. I don't. When you're talking about it, like I would honestly say Auburn was one of the worst all-time undefeated national championship. Crazy, best story, best accomplishment, but I think like if we're going on metrics, it wasn't the best team overall, right? Like, so the fact that they're behind Auburn, but they're ahead of 2019 LSU is a crazy stat here. But I mean, to be a top 10 overall team in the power rankings of all time college football champions since 46, like that's got to give them some credit. Like, good job, Signetti, I guess, right?
It is interesting because it does feel like a weird, like greater than the sum of their parts stat ring. I'm not doubting it either. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I'm looking at curious because you mentioned that LSU team. We know Joe Burrow's 60 touchdowns, 6,000 passing yards. Jamar and Justin. Jamar breaking the SEC records before Devontae Smith broke them the next year because that's how football was in the early 2020s. It was a glorious time for offense. So, like you see that statistically. Then that USC team, Lendo White and Reggie Bush combined for 32 touchdowns that year.
Yeah.
Like that's just their sophomore running backs. I'm not including Matt Leinart, who won the Heisman Trophy stats in that. Mendoza accounted for, I think, 40 this year. So those two running backs almost match that. And USC, we know how good those defenses were. So it is interesting to see them rank that high, which not doubting as a team, they've been outstanding. I think that's maybe why offensively their statistics aren't as gaudy because they get out to a quick lead. A lot of the RPOs control the game. Defense makes a couple of plays. Suddenly it's 17-3 and midway through the second quarter, and the other team's getting blitzed by that defense and the rest of the game. It's kind of Indiana's basically in cruise control. So I can see it, but they're interesting, that's for sure. And shout out to JMIU. They've done it with so many transfers as well. So many. There's not a lot of blue. They were 100-1 underdogs coming in with the chance to win the not 100 underdogs, 101 chance to win the national championship coming to the year. So it's not like anyone saw this coming. They thought last year was a fluke, and this year they're getting clapped. Even neither one of us put them in the playoff when we did our preseason preview because we were like, well, they'll be fine, but we'll see. Sure enough, right? Like that's where they come from. But I'm going to be curious to see what happens in the following years. If this was a one-off with all the transfers, or if they're just going to keep. If Signetti is about to build a complete army wagon there, that's what I'm going to be curious to see moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, they got a lot to build off of. And by the way, there was one more thing I wanted to throw out here, stat-wise, that I thought was really cool. Prior to the national championship game, and I'm just not looking at the national championship game right now because it wasn't considered in this comment. But Indiana had not trailed at any point during its 3 games of the college football playoff experience, becoming the first team to do so since 2020's Bama team. And then don't forget, Indiana still has to play. Would after the national championship would have played 2 more games than that Alabama team. So pretty impressive. Like just like you don't think about it, right? You said the sum of all parts, and I think that's a very good point because Indiana as a whole is a fantastic unit. And then when you start picking it apart, you're like, oh, there's gaps here, but they cover their gaps so well. As just look at the way the game ended, right? If that ball is thrown 5% better, it's a Miami national championship. That's not much. Like 5% is a very small difference when you're talking about the throw ability.
And that is a high IQ play by the defender too. In your cover 2 zone, there is no flat, so you actually sink and get underneath something like that to make it harder. Where you'll see corners in a cover 2 just kind of sit because that's their responsibility. Knowing the time and situation when they need a touchdown, there's no one in the flat, so you sink like that and get underneath that throw because it was the right read by the coverage, in theory, throwing that whole shot. Just incredible play by the defender.
I mean, and also if you look back at the play, the running back looks like he's going to be out in the flats. Like that's what the play looks like. It looks like the play was designed to be that, but it looked like they had to check it so the running back stayed in because the Indiana was sending a blitz or at least rushing one more. than they were expecting. And so if you look at that, like you said, takes away the flat. It allows him to drop, kind of sit on that, and just cut underneath it. It was a beautiful thing, and the storyline behind Sharp being the one to get the interception after what happened to his uncle. I think it was his uncle, or uncle in what 2001 for Miami against Ohio State. Like it's incredible to that storyline as well.
Absolutely. It definitely came full circle. It was one heck of a game. Let us know down below what you all think of it. JMIU, do you think they'll be able to continue this run? Or do you think this was their one national championship run where you rank them all time? But a big key of this is, of course, Fernando Mendoza, the Heisman Trophy winner, the signal caller, the quarterback. He will not be back next year as he is already a Cal graduate who's just finished up his final year of eligibility. He will be heading presumably to the NFL and potentially the Las Vegas Raiders. By the looks of it, number one overall selection. They had the owner, the GM, the Tom Brady all in the house watching. I think he's going to Vegas. I don't know what the odds are right now, but I'm pretty sure they're in the minus form. And it seems like a fit. It feels like I know they don't have a coach yet, so that obviously changes things. Maybe once they get a coach, that changes. But you have a huge need at quarterback. You do have a veteran under contract for one more year. If you're Vegas, you haven't hit the quarterback since Derek Carr, and even that was kind of shaky after a couple of years. I feel like assuming you don't absolutely hate the prospect, because I know coming out of that offense, does it translate? You know, he's not elite traits, quote unquote, which I think is vastly overrated more often than not. But at the same time, he just seems like a very good football player that I think if you change the offense, he'll learn. All right, he's not running the same offense. Give him time. He'll learn it. He's in the best, nicest way possible. And I say this as a fellow one of them. He's a nerd. Like he's an absolute nerd. You could tell, which is great. You kind of want that from a quarterback. So I think he's going to be fine wherever he goes. I think, will he ever be elite? We don't know. They can't tell the future. If I had to guess, I think he's going to be above average to pretty good. A couple of Pro Bowls here or there, which that's great. The Raiders haven't had that in a long time. So I think he's well on the way, unless he pulls aside and was like, yeah, I'm not going to Vegas. Then that shakes things up completely, which can you imagine that? He says, I refuse to go to Vegas and forces his way to the Jets. Who would have saw that coming?
No, that's crazy. It's funny. I definitely support the nerds. If nobody knows what's behind me, I have a Green Lantern statue, a Hulk statue, some Power Ranger stuff right here. Like,
That's a different
yeah,
level of nerd.
we support the nerds on this podcast. Don't forget we did the May the 4th Be With You podcast where we had our lightsabers out last year. Surprise, I guess spoiler for this year. But
that was a literal thing. That was not a euphemism. So everyone get your mind out of
no,
that.
yeah, literal lightsabers from wherever I bought them from Disney for myself, but whatever. Yeah, no, I think Mendoza is one of those guys you look at, and if you compare him to, let's say, a lot of the quarterbacks that's come out, let's say, last 6 years since Joe Burrow, he's not top 3, but he is 4th in my eyes. I don't think there's been a better potential quarterback for a high floor and potentially higher ceiling if you allow him to learn and not get killed immediately. I mean, obviously Joe Burrow's 1, Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, split them as 2, 3, however you want to. After that, I don't find anybody ahead of him.
Herbert, Drake May. I mean, they're
since 2019.
Well, Herbert came out
Oh,
the same year as Joe Burrow, so
I guess fair, but yeah, it's still a split though. I mean,
I
like
get what you're
honestly,
saying. He's in the upper echelon of
like
guys.
Drake. I think Drake may have a chance, may have that 4th spot. So maybe he's 5th. Maybe Mendoza's 5th. I think Herbert was he was so beaten up by the media by the time he came out. He was not looked at as that can't miss prospect. Plus, Joe Burrow was the can't miss prospect that year.
Yeah, everyone hated Herbert, then they didn't hate him, and now they hate him again, which means the resurgence is coming.
Yeah, and we'll talk about him later. But I do think like when you compare him to some of the quarterbacks, he's definitely not a bad quarterback. It's not as awful as a lot of people are making him out to be. And I do want to say, like, I've listened to a lot of different podcasts and a lot of different sports podcasts, and I don't think that surprises anybody considering we're doing a podcast. So you normally listen to a podcast. But the Carr brothers, they have a podcast, David and Derek Carr, and they were talking about what needs to happen for Fernando Mendoza. And Derek said he would love him to be a Raider, but if you're not going to fix everything around him, don't take him. I agree with that in a lot of cases if you're the Raiders. Now, what do you do? We'll talk about that in a minute. But I think for this specifically, I think that's fair for what you need to do for Mendoza. Mendoza can go to Vegas and succeed. He has a very, like he said he'd die on the field for his boys. That's the type of mentality that leads you to the Raiders and leads you to potentially get hurt at the Raiders a la Derek Carr when you're having an MVP season and break your leg because you're dying on the field for your boys. Let's not do that again, Raiders. I know you were Oakland at the time, but let's not do it again. The dysfunction carried over. So I think when you look at this for Mendoza, yes, I think he could be a great fit in Vegas, but I think there's a lot of pieces that need to be fixed. We talked about this off air, and we talked about the offense and what you can do. Obviously, a new head coach is coming, which means a new offense, which means a lot of new pieces. I think, and I said this with Lamar when Lamar got drafted by Baltimore. Whatever offense you end up bringing in, build it around your quarterback. Don't just bring an offense and say learn it or bust. Even Ben Johnson adapted to Caleb Williams, and so now I didn't adapt much, but he adapted more than he did for Jared Goff. That's for sure. So yeah, I look at this as like one of those, like, whatever you do, you got to make Mendoza succeed. You have to give him every opportunity. And the guy's smart enough. He was a Yale-bound player before he decided to go UC Berkeley and then ended up at IU. 3 pretty smart schools if nobody knows school rankings. And yeah, I think he has the ability to learn whatever offense. It's just going to be a matter of, don't ask him to do things that he hasn't learned how to do yet. Whatever you do, and just give him some protection. Bring an offensive line in. Spend money in free agency. You have a lot of cap space. Go use it. You got 2 young, talented skill players. You're going to have a third in the quarterback. Go get some offensive linemen and help all of them out.
Obviously, rumor is Tom Brady is going to be involved as a minority owner, is going to be involved as part of the scouting search, the coaching search, things like that. Not saying he'll have a final say or even a major say, but it sounds like he'll have a say. This would be the case where you take everything. Maybe you don't let him make all the personnel decisions, but this is one where you take a lot of what he says with more than you take that one. It's worth its weight in gold. Let's say he likes Mendoza. He's like, take him. I think he's the guy. All right, what can we do to make him succeed? Obviously, you have all that cap space. Veteran offensive lineman will definitely help. They need a true receiver. Like they have an awesome tight end running back. Get him some receiving help on the outside. We know how much he loves those back shoulder fades, front shoulder fades. This is a wild idea, but if he's available, it's dangerous. It's very, very dangerous. I don't know if I would do it. Ask me again in a few weeks when we close free agency. But George Pickens with those back shoulder fades and Brock Bowers too, you'll have to give George Pickens a bag, and you're putting George Pickens in Vegas. So there's, once again, I might change my mind later. This is just off the top of my head before the season's even ended about a big number 1 true X-type receiver you could give Mendoza, because you're going to use Brock Bowers all over the field. You're going to let Ashton Genty treat him like Marshawn Lynch is what they should do, and hopefully they will moving forward. Build that offensive line, spend a lot of money for it. Look what the Patriots did. They gave $160 million in guaranteed money last offseason, $284 million worth of contracts, and look where they are now. Granted, easiest path of all time to this point, but that's another story. They got there because they had a quarterback they believed in and built a unit around him. And I think the Raiders, they're not going to do that necessarily, especially not Mendoza's rookie year, but do a similar thing and maybe let Geno start the season. You still have him under contract. Let him get assaulted for the first month and some change. Let Mendoza work his way in slowly. Maybe Geno Smith shakes some things up and it looks pretty good. And that means Mendoza can sit even longer. Maybe it's awful and then Mendoza comes in sooner but put him on that Drake May trajectory where Drake May sat for 5 weeks behind Jacoby Brissett before eventually it was like, okay, we can't do this anymore. See what you could do with that at least a little bit. So I think he's going 1, and I think there is a path there for them to hopefully do it right. Just got to do it right and get a coach you're not going to fire in a year. So no 80-year-olds, no interim coaches, no somebody with baggage 3 times over. Just get somebody that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And also, let's not forget that Mendoza, and before we get into the complaining about Mendoza, as we will when we get to the draft season, about he's unathletic, he's sneaky athletic. The guy ends up with 7 rushing touchdowns on the season. If you want to compare that to where NFL quarterbacks are this year, he would rank just behind Jalen Hurts at 5th overall in the league on quarterback rushing touchdowns. Last year, he would have been 3rd ahead of Anthony Richardson. Wow. So, yeah, there was actually a lot of guys with 6 touchdowns last year, but I'm not going to go down that list because there's like 10 of them. But you look at that as an kind of unexpected part of his game and it's probably the most now highlighted part of his game that will live in eternity, is that 1 rushing touchdown. But people forget the guy can actually run. And honestly, it's part of the reason he didn't work out at UC or at Cal is because Miami took his head off in a game, and he had to leave with a concussion. So let's not get him to do too much. But in the right situation, he can effectively do it. But yeah, you look at this as he has a lot of opportunity, man, and you gotta give him the opportunity. He has a lot of I guess ability to learn, and you got to give the guy like that any tool to learn. This is where I need John Gruden's QB camp again. I need him to go hang out with John Gruden for a week and just get all of that information. I need more Spider 2 Y Banana in my life.
I gotta say, the one thing I really hope they do is the same thing they do with Jackson Darts. Hey, Mendoza, give me your snap count because I want to see him once again just do this, and then you see just the fire and John Gruden's like, I hate college football so much.
Yeah,
you can tell he hates that so much. And another reason I want to say, let him get used to a cadence and a snap count. But